Welcome to Read Your Comics. Today I'm looking at All-Star Superman #1. Thanks for joining me today. You can probably guess why I'm looking at this book. There's a new Superman movie coming out. James Gunn, Guardians of the Galaxy director, is doing it. And if you follow him on social media, this is one of the titles that he has been showing on his posts, that it's one of the ones that he was using that inspired him for the movie. Now, I don't think James Gunn is going to do a direct adaptation of this book. However, I'm going to go ahead and say at the front end of this, if you ever want to read a Superman story that just completely encapsulates what it is to tell a good Superman story, All-Star Superman is the one to get. You can read this story and never read another Superman book again and feel completely satisfied that you have kind of gotten the best. I hold it up there with like Frank Miller's Year One and Dark Knight Returns. What they did to Batman, this book kind of does to Superman. Now, I bought these as they came out as a monthly book, and then I actually sold that set and bought the Absolute Edition because I liked it that much. Recently, I started picking them up again just because I kind of wanted to have another set of the singles. They're really not that expensive, like the single issues when I find them out there, but the hard part has been getting all of them. So, especially the later issues. I guess I'm sure orders kind of started tapering off towards the end. This is also something that is available in those little compact books that DC just started putting out. I don't know if they broke it up into two of those, or you can get the whole story in one. And, you know, if it's all in one, great. And that's a good way to go get it, $10. Go out there and get that, because this whole story is pretty awesome. I'm just going to look at issue #1 today to kind of give you a feel if you've never read this story. I just want you to kind of preview of what this is going to be like. I want you to go out and read this whole thing. But before I do that, I got to give a shout out to all the viewer support. All your likes, shares, and comments are much appreciated. And if you haven't done so yet, why not subscribe? I'll throw a little graphic up right here. It's right here. Just do those things, and it helps other comic fans find the channel, and yada, 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 you know the drill. What do you think about this cover? I'm a big fan of this cover. I remember it coming out and thinking like, man, what a difference of like how to sell a Superman book. I believe Jim Lee had just done a run on Superman as well, or Action Comics, one of the two. And, you know, it was very bombastic. Jim Lee, Superman in a big power hero pose on pretty much every cover if he wasn't getting beat up or whatever. But, you know, it starts out with a very, I would say, like, you know, iconic hero pose stuff. And this one just takes a completely different approach. You've got Superman just kind of chilling out, sitting on a cloud, overlooking the city, almost relaxing. And he's turned over his shoulder to kind of look at us like he knows something we don't. Or it's almost like an above it all sense, but at the same time, this is Superman and he doesn't exude that arrogance most of the time, right? This design, this all-star trade dress is, I believe it was designed by Chip Kidd, if I'm not mistaken. It's another interesting take on it. I think it works better on Superman than it did on the All-Star Batman book. And the Wonder Woman one never came out, I don't think. But I think it works good for Superman because it is like he's flying off this way. But this is Grant Morrison, Frank Quitely. If you haven't heard about this, I don't know what you're doing, but here we go. We're going to go ahead and jump in. One of the things that gets praised about this book so much is this opening page that sums up Superman's origin in 4 panels. Boom, dying planet, desperate scientist, last hope, kindly couple. And there you go. Krypton's blowing up. His parents send him off in a rocket. He's found in Kansas by a kindly couple who are going to raise him. That is the Superman origin. We know it. Everybody knows it. That's what I'm looking forward to about this James Gunn movie, is that he's not going to be spending a bunch of time exploring the origin of Superman because it is so ingrained in our pop culture. We all know it. We all know how it goes down. There's no point in doing more than this. I would not put it past James Gunn to do something like this in the opening kind of credits. I would be totally okay with it too. I think it would be cool to see this kind of reimagined in live action. This does have an animated movie out there, in case you didn't know, and it does a pretty good job of adapting this book. But like anything, it has to leave stuff out. I mean, this is a 12 issue series. The movie was like an hour and a half. It had to leave some parts out of the whole book, but it did do this. It did do that. Get this awesome spread of Superman flying by the sun. Of course, you can't really tell what it is in this initial part. You're just kind of like, what is he doing? He's flying next to something that's like white hot. Got a little bit of almost Kirby energy coming off right here, and the lighting on his face. I mean, this is just an awesome pose for Frank Quitely. You go from that sitting on a cloud image on the cover to this right off the bat. And if that doesn't say Superman, you can almost hear that John Williams theme playing as this happens, right? The dun 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 dun. So immediately we're jumping into some action too. There's a space station of sorts that's next to the sun. They came to get a teaspoon of sun, I believe it said in here. And it's these biogenetic creatures that the scientist, who I think is only introduced in this series, I don't, as far as I know, he was never a character that was in the main Superman books. He was created for this, but he created these like biogenetic beings that could withstand some of the elements of flying in a ship close to the sun. But this one starts mutating into this monster and kind of ruin it. Death, courtesy of Lex Luthor. So again, we're just getting into it, man. We're not gonna dilly dally around and like spread this out and make this part be the ending of a drawn out first issue. We're jumping into it. Things are going awry. Here comes Superman to save the day, and you got an awesome kind of zoom in here. I mean, is it the Superman's flying closer to the camera, or is it that the camera is zooming in towards Superman? Is it a combination of both? But it's a cool little pan up there. Now we're going to cut to the Daily Planet, and you got Lois working on a headline. Cat Grant's up there looking at the sun because they know that something's going on at the sun. Well, you think she's looking up at the sun, but she's just checking out the muscular window cleaner. You've got this Lombard, who is a character that's been around in Superman lore, working at the Daily Planet in the past. Lois kind of reminds me of here as the girl that played she played Lana Lang actually in the Smallville show, which I didn't watch a ton of it. I watched a little bit of it, but I feel like she's more modeled after that actress than any other Lois Lane we've seen. Here's Jimmy helping her come up with the title. This philanthropist Leo Quintum, that's the scientist. She says philanthropist here, but that's the guy I was saying that I'm pretty sure was created just for this series. Classic looking Daily Planet. I mean, you can't do the Daily Planet without the globe on the top like that, right? Any other way you do the Daily Planet is kind of meh. It's not the Daily Planet. Luthor lied as a headline, and it's just another great establishing moment of the series. Luthor lied is going to jump us right back to Luthor, and he's doing something. He's in like a VR setup here. Probably requires you to be a little understanding of technology of today. This general guy comes in and is confronting Luthor about like what he's up to. He wasn't supposed to be doing anything to go after Superman, and he's kind of like, well, first of all, Luthor's not really, he's saying, excuse me, General, and he's just kind of talking, and you can tell there's like a conversation going on, but we're only getting the Luthor end of it. When the General is like, what are you doing? And Luthor now is talking both to the General and whatever else is going on. I know I promised I wouldn't waste my intellect on kryptonite robots and elaborate super death traps. I know that. But then he says, I noticed something looking in the mirror, the little wrinkles in my eye, around my eyes and my forehead. I'm getting older, and he isn't. So Luthor, who apparently has been in some sort of custody with the government here, is now saying, well, I got to kill Superman before I go, just of natural causes. So here juxtaposed here to where Luthor, we're getting the clues that he is controlling this monster that's up by the sun. Cool Superman pose of him coming in to save the. And again, they're not even like really people. They're like genetically created creatures isn't even the right word. I mean, they're genetically created people, I guess you'd say. They're clones of some sort, but not really clones. I think they're made up whole cloth. Anyhow, they're, you know what they are? They're like the DNA aliens is kind of what they are from the Jimmy Olsen Kirby stuff. That's kind of what they are. I don't think they call them that in this, but that's kind of what they are. Again, super cool. Trunks look awesome. Frank quietly pulls off the trunks on Superman perfectly. Perfectly. So then Superman, of course, this thing that Luthor is controlling, they're going to have a fight. Look at Superman's breath. He's freezing it, knowing that they're heading like out into the sun area. They're outside. He's saying, "Blow the hatch, Quantum." Well, Quantum is on this too. I guess he did something that he could withstand it as well. There's a minimalist approach to Frank Quietly too. He doesn't go overboard on backgrounds, although things happen in the backgrounds of a quietly composed page that are so subtle that they tell a story in themselves often without having to just muddy it up with like, you know, I think of like Jim Lee, John Byrne, guys like that who I like, but they would have had like all these like little lines of paneling around, like metal sheeting, computer work and stuff going on back here to give it like a more high-tech look. But Quietly's like, no, he's going to take the Apple approach. It's going to be sleek. Everything is sleek. Backgrounds minimal, like smooth surfaces, right? Look at this, the super breath by the sun causing like this, almost like a explosion of cold air and causing it to combust by the sun. That's just that's Grant Morrison, like kind of, you know, playing with bombastic nature of classic comics, really. And then Superman distributes a new power here, and it's because he's getting charged up by the sun. He's able to extend his own electromagnetic aura to pull this ship back with him and like tow it back into the base on the moon, I believe is where the base is. So pretty wild. And again, in the 1960s, Superman, he just developed powers for whatever the situation called for. If you've ever looked at any of those, like, you know, later golden, Silver Age Supermans, which I'm not super well versed in, but I see enough covers. I've looked at enough of them to understand how it worked. Superman would get these just crazy powers all the time. Whenever the story necessitated that he needed, he would get. Grant Morrison knows how to mine that kind of story and modernize it and bring it into today without it coming across as pure satire or taking like say like an Alan Moore approach where it would have to be like a flashback done in like in a Silver Age style for a few pages, right? But Morrison will just be like, no, hey, I'll give Superman a new power that'll be temporary, and I'll just throw it in for this one thing, and that's that he needed it for this one part, and we moved along. So now Superman's like supercharged from being so close to the sun. And here he's like demonstrating his strength, or well, they're kind of running a test, and he's saying it's like easier than ever. And this is our Dr. Quantum. You got to love his like rainbow reflective jacket here. So props to the colorist on this. Who is the colorist on this? It may not say in these first couple pages. It may say at the end. You gotta love that jacket though. This is Willy Wonka in a way. I feel like that's kind of what he's pulling from here. This is the Gene Wilder Willy Wonka, but making him like a scientist or a super scientist to put in this Superman story. Anyway, he basically says like, you've been hit with so much solar radiation now that your cells are like exploding in on themselves. You're having like cellular degeneration due to overexposure to the sun. It's going to amp up your powers, but it's also killing you at the same time. And I love this panel here where Superman's using his microscopic vision and he can see it. And I mean, he's looking at it too there, but he's like, he can see like the cells just kind of exploding on him. He can't feel it. It's not causing him pain necessarily, but he can see it. And this is a good shot too, just Superman in general. I love how quietly does the S, like as big as his chest. And he's a barrel-chested Superman, more in line with the George Reeve style of Superman, more so than like what Jim Lee had done, or John Byrne, or any of the more contemporary Superman artists had done, and taking him out of that Christopher Reeve look too, which of course I'm a Christopher Reeve fan like anybody, but sometimes you just got to break the mold a little bit to tell your own story. So essentially Luthor had planned all of this just to get Superman up there to the sun because he knew it would do it to him. That was all part of Luthor's plan, and that's really what's going to set the whole All-Star Superman series in motion. So as they're walking out, and you see a little bit more of Quantum's moon base here, and he explains what these are. Project, just like in the Jimmy Olsen books. I dedicated project resources toward building a new race of superhumans in case anything ever happened to you. Smart thinking. So in a way, he's here trying to like build superhumans to replace Superman because Superman's like the protector of the Earth. Something to note on this is that these pages are kind of glossy paper, but these ad pages are like reverting back to the newsprint. Seems like that would be harder to do than just printing the page. But then again, maybe it. Sorry, I'm gonna go like a little derailed here for a second. I wonder if it's they just printed off a ton of it. Like this one's on glossy paper. These are on the kind of newsprint. I bet these were in all the DC books that month, and it was easier to like just run off a ton of these papers, and then when they were like collating the books, just stuck these in all the books. Anyhow, and here he's explaining what this is too, that this is like a thing they're creating to go explore space. And then you've got these like micro things here too. Again, I had not read the Jimmy Olsen stuff, the Kirby Jimmy Olsen stuff when I originally read this, and honestly, I've read it within the past year, and I did read this series again with my kids, which they loved it. And I don't remember if we read this first or we jumped into that. I can't really remember, but like this is also something that comes out of that. So Grant Morrison mining the Kirby, Jimmy Olsen, Superman stuff here as well. These are some just outstanding pages. Perry White's waiting on Clark, says he's going to be fired in 10 seconds if he doesn't show up. You've got a kid running out in front of a bus. You see this, it's this blurriness. You know what's happening here, though. Superman's going to save that. And he's saying 3, 2, hold the presses. And this panel is just, this is great. This is 100% Christopher Reeve doing Clark Kent as he stumbles through the office. And this is almost like, think of like a Frank Miller panel of Daredevil doing like an action move or something, except it's Clark Kent tripping and stumbling, catching things, and then getting it back together. And this is all, of course, an act. And he makes it in just in time. And there's the kid saved. Cut back to Luthor, and now the military's in there to arrest him after he's, you know, he's done what he's wanted to do, though. So he's like, go ahead, cuff me, tape me. Before I do something really terrible to Superman. So now he's going ahead and turning himself in to be arrested, even though he was already under some kind of custody of some sort. So here's the credits. Let's see who did the digitally inked and colored by Jamie Grant. So Quietly probably does some pretty detailed pencils on this, I would imagine. And this looks like the end of the issue because it's faster. But it's not. We have an epilogue of Lois and Clark. And this is a great one of Lois She doesn't know who Superman is. She thinks Clark is kind of bumbling, but they're friends and all that kind of stuff. It's a classic Clark and Lois dynamic here. But the fun part of this whole interaction is what's happening in the background. So you see they're crossing the street and Clark bumps into this man. And as he's bumping into him, and the guy's yelling at him for being a clumsy idiot, your boyfriend's an idiot. She's like, how dare you? He's not my idiot. Why, thanks, Lois. Again, this is typical. This is just like the Reeves Superman in the Donner films. But over here, you've got like this crash and parts of a car flying. And then you see where there was a car accident of some sort. So even as Clark, he's saving somebody from getting hit by a car. And he's walking Lois to her door, and she's just kind of talking. He's like, Lois, please stop talking for just 1 second. I have something to tell you. And as he opens his shirt to reveal that he's Superman, and she drops binder and groceries. To be continued. So what a start to an issue. I feel like, since this is self-contained, this was really written not to change Superman, not like the new Absolute Superman series that is coming out, or an Elseworlds, for instance. This is meant to boil the essence of Superman down into a self-contained story that just captures everything about him. And I think this opening issue is one of the greatest ones. The whole series is like this, and you can almost pick up any issue of this, and it would almost feel like a little bit of a self-contained issue, I think. The whole arc, the whole 12 issues, obviously makes for a complete tale, but Morrison definitely approached this in a very episodic format. So that's it for this. As I said at the lead-in, this is available for $10 in the compact size, which is like, I don't have one, but like they're manga sized or they're not quite digest, but go out and get it and read it before the movie comes out. It's one of the sources that I saw James Gunn referencing the most out of like a dozen or so Superman books that he said he looked at. And I really think, even in the imagery of the trailer, I saw some of just the coloring and stuff, the brightness, the sense of hope and everything really shine through in that trailer to what this is as well. So that's all I got. Go out and read this. Until next time, read your comics. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed my breakdown of this issue, you can support the channel by hitting subscribe. It costs you nothing and helps other comic fans find the channel. You can also visit readyourcomics.com for cool merch, like this. Read Your Comics isn't just a brand, it's a mantra. And when you wear a Read Your Comics shirt, you are helping spread the word. For more classic comics conversation, be sure to follow me on Instagram at read.your.comics. And if you're still here, why not watch one of my older videos? Here or here.